Welcome to Children's Worship. Today we're going to learn about trust. As you listen to our two stories, one from the Bible and one other one, I want you to think about who trusted who in each story. The Tale of 12 Spies. After Moses led the people of Israel out of Egypt, they camped in the wilderness and traveled toward the land God had promised them. Finally, they came to the edge of Canaan, the promised land. God said to Moses, "Send men to explore the land." So Moses chose 12 men to be spies. Moses said to the spies, "See what the land looks like. Are the people strong or weak? Do they live in towns with high walls? What kind of fruit do they have?" So the 12 spies set out to explore the promised land. They discovered that the land produced good crops. They found a bunch of grapes so large that they had to carry it on a pole between two men. After 40 days, the spies came back to report to Moses. "The land grows good crops," the spies reported. But the cities have big, high walls around them. And the people are big and strong. The spies said, "We can't attack those people. They're giants, and we're like grasshoppers compared to them." But two of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, said, "Don't be afraid. The Lord is with us. The Lord will help us conquer the land." But the people wouldn't listen to Joshua and Caleb. Then God became angry because the people wouldn't trust him. God said, None of these people will enter the promised land. They will wander here in the wilderness for 40 years. And that's just what happened. But God was pleased with Joshua and Caleb because they trusted him. You can trust God too. Sometimes God may give you a hard job. Then you can be like Joshua and Caleb and say, I know I can do it because God will help me. This is the story of Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller. Helen Keller was born over 100 years ago. When she was about a year and a half old, she became very, very sick. She almost died. When she got better, her mother and father were so happy. But then, after a while, they realized that Helen had lost her hearing and her sight. The illness had left her deaf and blind. Helen grew up in a dark and silent world. Her parents couldn't tell her where to walk or play because she couldn't hear them, and they couldn't show her because she couldn't see them. She couldn't talk because she had not learned before she was sick, so she couldn't tell her parents what she wanted or what she was thinking. Her parents tried to teach her things, but it was very difficult. Helen couldn't make sense of anything, and she felt upset and frustrated. Sometimes she threw temper tantrums, screaming and hitting the people around her. I don't know how to help Helen, her mother said. We need help, her father said. So they hired a young teacher to come and live with them. The teacher's name was Anne Sullivan. Even though Anne had never taught anyone before, she had ideas about how to help Helen because Anne had had trouble seeing when she was a child too. She went to a school for the blind and learned how to read and write. When she was a teenager, she had an operation. Afterwards, she could see better, but she still had to take special care of her eyes. Anne knew that Helen's hands would need to become her eyes and ears. She gave Helen a doll and fingerspelled D-O-L-L into Helen's hand. Anne took Helen on walks in nature, touching objects along the way, patiently fingerspelling each one. L-E-A-F G-R-A-S-S T-R-E-E. At first, Helen thought it was just a game. She copied Anne's hand movements, but she didn't connect the movement of her fingers with the object she was touching. Anne thought Helen would learn better if it was just the two of them, away from the rest of the family. So they moved her to a little cottage by themselves. Over a month went by, and Helen still hadn't learned the name of anything. And Helen still had terrible temper tantrums. It was really hard for Anne, but she kept trying to help Helen. Then, one day, a miracle happened. Anne took Helen outside to a water pump, shoved Helen's hand underneath the spout, and started pumping. While the cold water flowed over one of Helen's hands, Anne fingerspelled the letters W-A-T-E-R into Helen's other hand. Suddenly, everything clicked for Helen. She made the connection between the movements in her hand and what she was feeling. It was called water. In a flash, Helen understood that all of the movements Anne had been making into her hand stood for what she had been touching. Excitedly, Helen pounded the ground. Anne spelled E-A-R-T-H. Helen couldn't get enough. She touched and touched everything she could, and Anne quickly spelled the word into her hand. That first day, Helen learned 30 words. Anne was so happy. She wrote in her journal, "My heart is singing for joy this morning. A miracle has happened. The light of understanding has shone upon my little pupil's mind, and behold, all things are changed." Anne dedicated the rest of her life to helping Helen. She didn't think about herself. She thought only of Helen. Anne taught Helen to fingerspell and to read and write in Braille, raise dots on the page that represent letters. Anne helped Helen learn about Christianity. When she learned about God, she said, "I always knew he was there. I just didn't know his name." Helen loved to learn, and she trusted Anne to teach her what she needed to know. Anne went to college with her, fingerspelling all of the class lectures and textbooks into Helen's hand. Anne's sensitive eyes were often red and tired, but she was devoted to helping Helen. If Helen doubted herself, Anne encouraged her. "You can do it," she said. As a result, Helen was the first deaf and blind person to graduate from college. When Helen was older, she traveled around the world speaking and writing about her life and beliefs. To her surprise, she became famous. Presidents, queens, and movie stars all wanted to meet her. Helen's life was happy, full of love and adventures, but she never forgot her teacher. She said, "The most important day I remember in all my life is the one on which my teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to me." Here are some questions to think about. What made Anne a good teacher? What made Helen a good student? How is learning words using fingerspelling different than learning words by reading letters on a page? Helen said, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched, but just felt in the heart." Helen felt God and Jesus in her heart. What do you think God feels like? Helen trusted Anne. Trust is really about letting go of fear. Is there a fear that you need to let go of? Jesus was also a teacher like Anne. He had to be very patient with his disciples, or his students, and they had to trust him as their teacher. In what ways do you think Jesus was like Anne? In what ways do you think Jesus was compassionate? Have you ever had a teacher that you really trusted and learned kindness from? Remember how Helen learned what water was by using a water pump? We're going to do an activity with a water pump. For this activity, you'll need 2 pieces of paper, one gray or black and one blue, something to write with, a pair of scissors, some painter's tape. If you don't have painter's tape, you need another type of tape that won't stick to the wall and pull off paint. You need to check with your parents or guardians before you use any tape on the wall. And a blindfold. To start, we're going to take our gray or black paper and draw the shape of a water pump. If you don't know what a water pump looks like, it looks something like this. So I'm going to start by drawing a bit of a wider base. And then I'll draw kind of a post. Widen it out a little bit. Partway up, I'm going to make a spout. And then I'm going to make my handle. It doesn't have to be perfect, just do your best. There we go, something like that. And I'm going to cut it out. And there we go, there's my water pump. The next part is easier. You're going to take your blue paper, and you're going to draw a water droplet. And cut that out. If you want, you can cut out multiple water droplets too. Maybe I'll do a couple more. Now I'm going to need my tape. I'm going to roll up a piece and stick it on the back of my pump and on the back of each of my water droplets. Now, I'm going to put my pump somewhere on a wall. And then I'm going to blindfold myself, or get someone to help me blindfold myself. Oh, but I need my water droplets. Okay. Then I'm going to stand up, have someone spin me around a little bit so I don't know where I am. Oops, I dropped a water droplet. There we go. And then I'm going to go place my water droplets where I think the edge of the fountain is. You can try a few times, or you can give a water droplet to someone else in your family and let them try, and then see how close. I was very far off. They're way over there. Maybe you got closer. Have fun playing! Today I'm going to teach you how to fingerspell. Fingerspelling is one way that people who are deaf, like Helen Keller, can communicate. The first letter of the alphabet when we fingerspell looks like this. This is how you make an A. The next letter is B. You're going to put your fingers up and then curve your thumb in front. C is next. Bend your fingers down and then bend your thumb in front. Then we have D. Now you're going to touch your thumb to your 3 fingers and lift your pointer finger up. D. E is kind of like C, but we're going to touch our fingers to our thumb. For F, you're going to touch just your pointer finger and your thumb and lift your other 3 fingers up. For G, we're going to point to the side and your thumb is touching the other 3 fingers. G. For H, it's the same thing, but you're going to point 2 fingers. For I, you're going to put your thumb on the 3 bigger fingers and stick your pinky up in the air. That's I. J is kind of like I, but you're going to make the shape of a J with that. J. K, you're going to bend the 2 smaller fingers down, and then you're going to put up your pointer finger and your middle finger and put your thumb in front of those. K. L, you make an L like this. M, you're going to bend all your fingers down and then stick your thumb between your pinky finger and your ring finger. M. And then for N, you're just going to move it over and put it between your middle finger and your ring finger. That's N. For O, you're going to bend all your fingers down and touch them to your thumb like this, or touch your pointer finger to your thumb. That's O. For P, you're going to put your pointer finger out, bend your 2 smaller fingers, and kind of stick your middle finger down over top of those, and then bend your thumb. Let's see if I can do that. Kind of like that. For Q, you're going to put your pointer finger and your thumb down and bend all the others in. For R, you're going to hold down your 2 smaller fingers with your thumb and cross your pointer finger and your middle finger. For S, you're going to put your fingers down and put your thumb in front of the 2 bigger ones. For T, remember how we did this for M and this for N? Well, this is T in between your pointer finger and your middle finger. You're going to hold down these smaller fingers again and put your two pointer and middle finger up and touch them together. When you spread them apart, that becomes V. And then when you lift up your ring finger to join them, that becomes W. X, you're going to hold down these three fingers, the smaller ones, and then bend your pointer finger kind of like a hook, like that. That's X. For Y, you're going to put out your thumb and your pinky and bend down the other ones. And then for Z, you're going to make a pointer finger and you're going to trace the shape of a Z. Now you know the whole alphabet. Can you figure out how to spell your name? My name is Hannah, so it looks like this. H, A, N, N, A,